So to the last part we were discussing. Our main focus will be on the order flow confluences. For that we'll use EXO in this template that I'm using. I will share with you if you also like. And then we will turn on this, the aggregators sounds. Main idea here is to be completely honest, I only focus on the liquidations and in the sounds. The sounds and the liquidations, to me, on the sounds of the liquidations are what tells me the speed of the tape and the state of the positions in the market at the moment. If a lot of positions are being taken on a big move, well, it can happen that we end up with a possible trade. Like now, for instance, we are having a lot of selling in this quite weird structure, like totally mean reverting structure on the 5 minute chart that goes below actually this is a great example of why price is fractal. This is a very good example of the same structure we are seeing on BTC. On this 4 hour is happening already on this 5 minute. Look, we are considering just a few hours of trading, but what do we see here? A steady uptrend that starts to reverse and start to take all of these stops on higher volume, of course, because what is the story that the order flow is telling us here? To me, the story that the order flow tells us here is that we had this very inefficient move, a start of the move that covers the at least some part of it, but then a failure to continue up. A failure to continue up is probably the best signal for a counter trade you have, because you have all of these efforts in the form of people engaging at this and forming this uptrend by providing their demand to price now being taken. So it's a complete wipe out of the open interest picture on this microcosm of price that we are watching in this couple hours of price action, but that is showing us a very, very similar picture to the one we are seeing on higher time frames. And if we go even higher, we can see exactly the same. So does this mean that BTC price will break the same way off? Absolutely no, but we are already having a clue of what could happen. The other day we were working with Rese and Woods on the workshop, and Rese mentioned a very important clue to start to pay attention. All of the movement starts on the lower time frame. We of course are interested in capturing the next short from BTC to 10K. We all want to do that at some point, and even more so now. However, you have two choices. You either use a very wide invalidation, so and give yourself time for that idea to play out, or you can also start playing on the intraday, like we do very often in this channel and in chart ideas as well. And the clue we have to that is that if we work on the lower time frames and we keep a bit of position, we most likely will end up having that overextension exposure. Many times is something that to me in particular has been quite difficult to do, because I tend to put not early, but I tend to fully close the trades and almost never leave small parts of my position for very long time. More than 1 or 2 days is quite weird that I do that. But I understand that if we manage to get an entry for instance, this entry right here, if this continues down and goes to 10k, we will say, oh, this was the top entry. No, it wasn't the top entry. It was a somewhat decayed entry from a lower time frame on the context of a bit of the start of a possible breakdown. At this stage, this can absolutely go back up. That is the beauty of using several time frames, several tools. You will need to see more than one picture, in my opinion, to be able to make your own trade. All trades are valid, remember, but your own trade is the capacity of engaging with the market at a zone that makes sense, but that you also be able to execute the trade to completion. I've been doing this mistake many times of not being patient enough and try to play a one day structure in 1 day or in 4 hours. It won't happen that way. It's simply impossible. So going back to the order flow, we were discussing this detail about price being fractal, and how the lower time frames give us a clue. As well, we could at this stage start checking the state of the order flow. I like to use two sources for the order flow on BTC. One is the inverse perpetual. This one is not loading. The inverse perpetual BTC USD chart, where I've seen that has quite a lot of open interest on on average is between 400 million and 600 million, which in my opinion is quite a lot. We will see the same picture on BitMEX, which is a more professional exchange, if you want. However, we will notice that BitMEX has a lower open interest, meaning that the amount of volume in consequence that is traded there will be less. How that affects the market? This is kind of a tricky question, and it actually would be a really good discussion for us to have during this week or during the times that we work together. The way I see affecting the market is that there are different types of participants on each exchange. This we have one way of corroborating or not, due to the requirements that the exchanges require. BitMEX requires you full KYC, when Bybit requires a certain level of non-KYC, and with which you can pretty much get away with a small account or several small accounts spread if you're a retail trader. So the main audience of Bybit will be, in my opinion, a retail trader that has a small account, as well as can be a big player that wants to participate in that type of pool. That is the reason why we have this discussion as well on why the flow is cleaner on BitMEX and is easier to spot traps on Bybit. In a certain way it is. In a certain way, with the experience I've had reading both exchanges, I can agree that it can be cleaner to read, and more often than not, the majority of participants on a move in BitMEX tend to be more accurate on the next move. They don't get trapped as much. That would be one way to put it. How do we realize if a participant is trapped or not? Interesting. For instance, the way I like to do it is to check these two indicators, the open interest at the moment and the delta. The open interest at the moment, and I use a few others for Confluence, but these are the basic, and these are the context. This is a previous week volume profile, and we have the current week markers, as well as a DOM, a dynamic DOM. That the main use of this is when I zoom in, you can see if a bit is chasing, if they are playing some games of spoofing, which is completely idiosyncratic on the exchange. This also is very interesting to see at times. The main use of the DOM is, in my opinion, if we catch a live example, that would be great. But for instance, here we have this cluster of activity. This is a trend reversal chart. We have a big move down below the previous week value area low, a cluster of activity where there were an up